G'day, g'day, g'day. We are in the brewery again today, of course, and these are the two Hefeweizens from my wheat beer yeast experiment. They're looking like a wheat beer, nice little haze. They have cleared a bit since, of course, they've been in the keg a few weeks now. And I have done, this is the third review I've done. I've had a few hard drive issues, they're all full. I'm moving files around and I'm not sure if I can find them all. So yeah, here's another one. And if I find the others and think there's anything good in there that I've missed in this one, because it's been a while now since I brewed them, I'll whack it on the end. For those that didn't see it, it was simply a fermenter. Here we go. I put the hef yeast in, let it go for 3 days. Then I took a third of the wort out and I filled it up with a third fresh wort. So it kicked off fermentation again. I was still fermenting, but it sort of kicked it off again and fermented it that way. The second one, I had that 2/3 of fresh wort with no yeast in it, and I put the third I took out of the first fermenter into the second fermenter. So besides that, they're exact same brew. Brewed a double batch. They both went to no chill, but this was pitched with yeast. 3 days later, yeah, I did the switcheroo, and this was pitched. So they're exact same beer, exact same yeast, just different methods of using the yeast, and that I've added that. It's like I primed it with some fresh wort. Now the theory was that adding fresh wort to it about 3 or 4 days in will give you much more complex esters and flavours. And look, I'm just going to tell you straight up, it worked. I'll check again, because I haven't checked for a while, but I'll check again. I believe it worked. They're just, even though they're the exact same beer, exact same yeast, brewed at the same temperature, they have very different aromas. They sort of, now they've aged a bit, the aromas are getting closer, but they're still different. They're still very different. They both have banana, but they smell like different stages of banana. Like one sort of smelled like a real banana and the other one smelled like confectionery banana. Now it's gone backwards and forwards a few times, but there's always been one constant for me, is the more complexity in the first one. And there's a clove. I think it mixes better. There's a mix of clove and banana in that first one. Yeah, it's just not quite there in this one. Yeah, it just definitely is. There's no ifs or buts about it. I've had 2 of my friends try it. One preferred the second beer, but the other one, like me, preferred the first beer. You'll understand this more if you actually watch the brewing video, but it's very interesting. There's just a huge depth of a little bit of spice and the banana. That's still really good, but it's not that. And they're identical. They are identical. Maybe that's more in focus. It's a bit hard. They're very they're covered in condensation because it's a hot day here today. We still haven't came up with the proper name for it. It's not really krausening, but it kind of is krausening. And someone mentioned another name, which I don't remember right now, but it'll be in the comments of the brew video. But it's not quite that either. So it's not sort of krausening where you start a beer fermenting off the krausen of another. It's nearly the opposite. And there's another method where you add fresh wort, but it's more for bottling. Instead of adding sugar, you add an amount of fresh wort and you bottle. or keg, and that's, you know, carbonates and things. It's closer to that, I guess. But anyway, someone might pop up on this one and tell me, or go back and watch the brew video. But whatever it is, that method works. You don't have to do the swap like I did. I did it because my fermenters wouldn't hold any more, you know, enough wort in it or beer in it. So that's why I took the third. Before I added fresh wort to the fermenter, I took a third out, so I had space and filled it up. Because you're supposed to do about a third more, apparently. And that also gave me the opportunity to put that third into this beer and ferment with that. Now this took a little bit longer to ferment out. A little bit longer. Like I know it started 3 days later, but it still took, you know, a little bit longer than that 3 days to finish fermenting. I'm not sure why. But yeah, that's what happened. But even, as I said, my friends, one of them was astonished at the difference, because it's exactly the same beer. It's not like I brewed one day and one the next day. They were brewed the same day, no chilled. I no chilled them both so it would be more accurate. So someone might say it might be different because I didn't no chill one, but they were both no chill. The only difference was this was in the no chill cube for 3 days longer, which, if you know anything about no chill, that is nothing. Maybe if it was a year later, you might think something, but there's definitely, it's the yeast that's done this. Yeah, so it can be tricky to try unless you do it my way. You'd have to sort of, like in these breweries that continually pump out these beers, you know, of course they brew a batch and then a few days later they've got a fresh batch coming through, and that's how they do it. So they must have a big fermenter and then pump some fresh wort on top of that, on top of the fermenting batch, and I tell you what, it works. It works. Anyway, it's something to try. I thought that was very interesting. As I said, it's been a while since I brewed this. If I've forgotten something and I see it and find my other reviews I've done, I'll add it on the end. But besides that, that's about it. Thanks for watching. I'm happy when experiments work. There's nothing worse than doing experiments and they don't work. But thanks for watching. Thanks to my Patreons. Like, subscribe, share, and all that. And I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy. Peace out. Cheers. It's kind of funny. Some days, like if I really want a hef that tastes like a hef, and with depth and a bit more complexity, since it was a very simple grain bill, I know most of them are, but you know, I've seen people add, you know, all these other things just for a little bit of, you know, a bit of Munich and a bit of this just to give it a bit more thing. But this was very simple, 50% Pilsner, 50% wheat. And yeah, if I want one of that, I go for the first one. If I've already had a few beers and I just want, you know, I'm out mowing the lawn or something, a lawnmower beer, then I'll go to this one. Because it's just a bit, it seems a bit lighter and a bit, yeah, there's less phenolics, I guess you'd say. But anyway, cheers. That's enough. Bye. Oh, and Vince, he said I should blend them. So you just missed that off camera then, but I went, shh. But, you know, I think when you do that, you do kind of get the best of both worlds then. It depends what you're after. Oh, that's really nice too. Is it different to this? It has to be, in a way. Something you can experiment with. Blending. I've done a video on beer blending. If you've never done it, you're missing out. You can do it to repair things. You can do it to just make things better. You can do it to make up a new beer that you would never be able to brew. Just, you know, going straight from mash tun to fermenter and into the glass. The blending gives you a lot of opportunities. It's great if you do sours too. You can do a really sour batch and then blend it until you get it to where you want. That's what a lot of the breweries do. All right, that's it. Take it easy. See you later for the third time. It's a very, very light beer. Even though I haven't tested the FG of this, which I should, this one only went down to, at least via the tilt, about 1013, which is pretty high. But drinking it, it does not seem like that at all. And that's a thing that you'll find in brewing. Just because you have a high finishing gravity sometimes, it doesn't mean beer's going to have a huge mouthfeel, and a thickness to it. It just doesn't work like that. And look, to be totally honest, I haven't gone into and checked the finishing pHs of these. I haven't gone in and checked the amount of other things, the water profile, the things that can affect mouthfeel. I made these a balanced. These were a balanced water profile. From memory, I haven't got it in front of me now. They're about 45 sulfate, 45 they were equal, but I think it was around 45. And whereas some wheat beers you can have, that varies a lot in water. When you brew a wheat beer, you can't just go, what's the wheat beer, Hefeweizen water profile to use, because it varies greatly. It varies greatly. And I prefer the sort of the darker ones and thicker ones, where these are a bit thinner, but I sort of wanted to try and rely on the, I wanted to hold the malts and flavours back and rely on what I got from the yeast in the method that I used. So that's quite nice. I'm sort of trying to remember, I don't have to do that to say I'm remembering. That 9.5% beer has got me. Remembering to that hef beer I had during the advent calendar. But see, this is a bit more gentler and a bit more banana. But whereas it doesn't taste as good as this one. This one's way more complex. Way more. I don't know what way more means, but this one's more complex. When it comes down to it, the method definitely worked. The recipe's a bit boring. I'm not even sure I'm really picking up much from my, it's hard to tell if I am, I guess. I haven't got a neutral version. From my, it was a little bit of a poor decoction method. Because I knew I started to burn, I could smell it was starting to scorch when I tried to take the photos, so I stopped. And I had too much liquid. You've really got to, when you do decoction, you've really got to hold back on the liquid. Use a sieve, and you've got to use just malt, but you've got to stay on top of it. Because of that, it's really thick, literally like a mashed potato. You know that minute you stop stirring mashed potato if you're trying to reheat it and it scorches? That's what happens. But that's the way you got to do it. Oh, see, sometimes I really like the banana that's in this. Oh, but it's still here. It's still in this one. This one had the huge banana aromas in the fridge. Like I opened this from day 1 to day 7 to day 8, whatever it was. I kept getting huge banana aromas out of the fridge. Where the other one, that didn't really. Every time I opened the fridge, I really got nothing until probably the last couple of days. I started getting a little bit of banana. You know what I reckon it would be best? Here's a mix. And as much as I've copped flack for my blending video, people just don't realise how often breweries do it. It's a very important part of brewing and a really great skill to learn. Just let me take a beautiful photo of this beer. It looks sensational from this side if you're into hazies. Sorry about that. G'day, we're in the brewery today. Today I'm going to show you how I brewed this beer. This is the first beer in a series of beers I'm going to brew in the name of my late mate, Dave Death Whale, Dave Destruction, whatever you want to call him, the king of rock and roll. He probably wouldn't have drank this beer, but that doesn't matter. That's not what this is about. He was a beer drinker. He was one of the biggest beer drinkers I've ever known. We used to drink a lot of beer together. I lived next door to him for 10 years. I've known him for a good 25 years. Yeah. Anyway, this is the first in the series, the Harpoon Hazy. It's sort of in the middle of an NIPA or an IPA. It's all Citra. It's about 25% oats, and the rest just a base malt. I did mix up the base malts a little bit. I'm a bit old school. When I use a lot of Pilsner malt, I like to put in a little bit of ale malt just because. I've been brewing a long time, and in the old days, we used to throw in a bit of ale malt just to make sure there was enough enzymes in the Pilsner malt. This is just, it's like liquid Citra. It could be a bit much for some. It's not as big a beer as my Green Greed, but it is just Citra, and it's a little bit bitter. That's why I'm saying it's in the middle, but I wanted it that way. I didn't want another really, mellow hazy. I wanted a little bit of bitterness. So yeah, I did make the water profile like an IPA, just so I could use a lot of hops without without getting too much bitterness, but I still wanted that bit of bitterness there. And I use a little bit of a different method, but which a lot of the big breweries use, of their whirlpools, and they do them at 90 C, a little bit higher than most home brewers. You'll say will see 80 C, say 80 C, so they don't get any bitterness. But even if you have a look at some of the big breweries and IPAs, they'll still use 90 C. It just gives a little bit, it breaks up the hops, and by the time they finish the whirlpool, it's probably dropped down to the 80 anyway. So there is about 310 grams of Citra in this, as you'll see in the recipe. I think you could drop it down a little bit. It's a taste bud wrecker. I think you could probably cut the dry hop down a little. I did 100 grams the first one, and not quite 100 grams the second one, but I was going to. It's sort of up to you. I think I mentioned in the video that if you followed it to a T, it'd be 100 grams in the whirlpool, 100 grams first dry hop, 100 grams second dry hop, and 10 grams at 60 minute. Now, look, if you wanted to just do like an IPA style, you could cut out the 60 minute edition, that 10 grams, or you could even just use 10 grams at 60 minutes, and at that whirlpool time, instead of using 100 grams, just use the 90 grams, and that way you're only using 300 grams all up. Or it depends. If you're buying it in like half pounds where you got 250 grams, 10 grams at the start, you could do your 90 grams in the whirlpool, and then you could do 75 grams first dry hop, 75 grams second dry hop, and 75 grams is about 3 ounces. So it'd be, for the people overseas in the US, a little under half an ounce at 60. 90 is about 3 ounces in the whirlpool, and then about, I was going to say 3 ounces again, but a little bit less than 3 ounces. You may as well say 3 ounces again in the first dry hop and the second dry hop. Yeah, but I really like it. I had all those NIPAs and all the lactose big oat cream ones. This is a bit more refreshing. It's still a huge beer though. It's not for the faint-hearted, but it looks good. It tastes good. I was going to make it a little bit clearer than an IPA, sort of just a hazy. And you could just dry hop at the end and not dry hop in Hefeweizen, but that's what I did, and that's how it ended up, and I'm quite happy with it. So that's the Harpoon Hazy. I'm going to have a t-shirt for it. Got to do the whole thing for the Dave. I'll show you me tattoo. I got a tattoo, me mate Dave Death Whale. I got his Death Whale tattoo on my leg, which you'll probably either laugh or cringe at. But he'd be laughing up there. And yeah, all done. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. And thank you to the patrons. The next one will be an Australian lager type thing. Like Dave's favourite beer was VB, and I drank many a VB with him in the past. Even when I was into craft beer and brewing, if you went to Dave's house, he was like a brother to me, and you drank VB with him because that's what you did. It was respect. We filled a wool bale in 3 weeks of empty cans, and there was only probably 3 or 4 of us drinking on the most of the days. He might have had a few extra on a Friday night, but that is a huge, big wheelbarrow. It's not something to be proud of, but it's just say how we used to drink with Dave, and it's probably why he went to a little bit of an early grave. But anyway, thank you, and we're on to the next one. But I'll do something a little bit different. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a double batch in the 65 litre. So I'll be able to give people have asked me a lot for like VB, Australian lager clones. It doesn't have to be VB, 2Es, whatever you want, 4X. And I think I'm going to do a double batch, and I'll make the first half Dave's beer, and the second half will turn into something else in the same batch of beer. I think that's a good idea. Anyway, that'll be the next one. Take it easy. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Liquid Citra. You'll either love it or hate it. Cheers. I love it. I could just live on Citra. Although I did today, I must admit. I've got all this Citra in the freezer, and I thought, what am I going to do? I've got to stop it. Everyone's sick of me brewing with Citra. So I ordered a bunch of Amarillo, because I think Amarillo and Citra go really well together. Maybe that's just me. Cheers.